Okay, we're back online. I think we should be good here, hopefully. Let me check here on my side. Okay, we are back. Okay, I have notified everyone here. Hello, hello, hello. Okay. Let's wait a few more minutes for people to come back in. Hey, Joel. Thank you for coming back. Okay, so like I said before, with the overall markets here, I think that this pullback is healthy so far. I mean, we need it. We desperately need it. This is a pullback I've been waiting for. And people are panicking, right? They're like, oh, why are we going up higher, right? But I mean, it was imminent here. So in order for us to kind of start to chill here, for us to kind of, let off some steam, since we can't just keep on running and running and running and running and running, we need to come back down. And the levels that you guys have to be watching out for is around 452.50, which is our next level of support. And then 451 will be our next huge level of support. If we break 451 though, our next big level will be 449.80ish. Okay, and then from that point on, I will start saying that, okay, this is kind of looking like a reversal, right? Because if we break below 449.80ish, that will be our halfway point from our breakout, almost halfway point. So if you go lower than that, and we start actually filling in these gaps that we made here, that's going to be problematic. Because that's going to be telling me that SPY is looking to head lower, all right? And maybe SPY might also actually start taking in the economic numbers that we had and the inflation numbers as well, right? Negatively, finally, right? So if that does happen, though, obviously I don't know if that's gonna happen or not, because right now this is good action, right? We're pulling back, and we just have to see a bounce at near levels of support. That's it. Okay, let me write this again here so people are coming in. And then pin this here. All right. Okay, we're getting more people back in now. Awesome. Oh, sure. Let's look at Dow. Joel, thank you for that. All right, so Dow, looking at the weekly time frame first. Actually, let me make it a. Okay, so Dow. So like we said before, right? Dow has a lot more movement. I believe I did go for DAL. I did talk about DAL last time on Monday, I believe. And DAL has a lot more momentum to move to downside. Well, because first of all, we broke this level of previous resistance, which we should have used as a level of support, but we didn't, right? And so this tells me that sellers are most likely going to be, there's going to be a lot of selling going on if you break this level of resistance. So as we're going lower, okay, we're still in the very much of a big downtrend. If you look at the weekly time frame, right, this looks ugly. I mean, I won't sugarcoat it here. This looks very ugly. The fact that especially if you're trying to long this name, I would say wait. But you're right, Joel. There is a demand area that we're approaching, which we talked about last time as well, around 38.80ish, or if you want to round it up, just 39, just 39.00, right? But just to be specific, 38.80 should be your area that you want to see and wait for a bounce. But we're having some consistency with the volume as well. That's the only thing that worries me about your position there. Even if you have one contract, that's fine, right? I just think that with this consistent amount of selling volume here, I mean, we're not seeing an immediate drop off of the volume, which I would have wanted, especially as we're heading into an area of demand or support. But I'm getting the opposite. We're getting even more, right? And the reason why I want to see a big drop off in demand of selling, so not demand, so a lot more selling volume, right? The reason why I want to see that big drop in volume for sellers is that I want to see that big momentum switch between the sellers to buyers, right? When we come back down to this 38.80ish level, right? So I want, this is something that I want to see the buyers to come in and snap the price back up like we did plenty of times here, right? And the reason why I'm telling you guys this is that I've seen this happen, right? We're looking at it right now. Whenever we touch the level, we bounce right back up. Whenever we touch the level again, we bounce back up, touch it again, bounce back up, right? I want to see this continuation of this bouncing pattern here on 38.80 for DAO. So I think, Joel, if you can tolerate that risk here, since you're already in it, just only one contract though, which is completely fine. You can actually add a contract if we bounce at 38.80 and we see that confirmation of a bounce. So here's where I would add your second contract there, Joel. So if we bounce, okay, so we go lower though, okay, so obviously we have to head lower, right, tomorrow, let's say, if we start heading lower tomorrow. And then if we bounce at 38.80, and then we actually start bouncing above this low of the candlestick today, right? So low of the candlestick today was 39.02. So if you start going above 39, and I will say you can start adding around 39.45-ish, near 39.50. Okay, that would be a great area to add because that means a lot more buyers will be in by that time when the price is around 39.50 because, well, they're the ones that bid the price up, right? So once the price starts to cross below the low of the day today, start looking at the name. Okay, keep an eye on that name, and then you can add once the price is like literally near around 39.50. Okay, and you can add that second contract there. I'm not telling you to add even more contracts because first of all, what are we looking at? We're looking at a clear downtrend, right? So you need to see and have more time to see whether or not we're going to get a confirmation to see that actual reversal to the upside. Okay, so the only I'm just recommending you if you want to add to your current contract, or I would highly advise you to roll your contracts to another expiration, maybe even November 19th calls for DAL. Because you have a lot more time, and November 19th has a lot more volume as well, I believe, and a lot more open interest on those contracts. So, so 38.80 is basically your stop area. If we start breaking below 38.80, you should get out, right? Because if you break 38.80, we can flush all the way back down to 37.50 to 37.20-ish. That's kind of our range there, right? So, like I said, take a look at the weekly chart, keep a look at it. This is very ugly. We could not, uphold these gains that we made back in September 20 and September 27th, these past 2 weeks the last 2 weeks of September, and we completely erased them all, right? And now we're heading even lower, right? So this tells me that sellers are fully in control. And there's potential and high probability that we can see a bounce on 38.80. All right, just keep on watching out for the volume and wait until we can cross above 39.50 to have that extra contract added on your current position. All right. Okay, so hey, Morris, you're back. Nice to see you here. We did talk about that Bumble and Match, remember? That you just got out of a meeting and you can see and get in Match or Bumble. But, that's still a pretty good pretty good. At the very least, you're able to see that the price moving on match, and you saw that breakout happening as well. Of course, Joel. You're welcome as always. So let's look at NQ. So we're going to be looking at some futures, everyone. So if anyone in here does not know what futures are, okay, futures is basically the overnight movement of the overall markets, and it's basically, I would say personally what I use when I look at futures is I'm trying to look at the overall sentiment overnight of the markets, right? And you can kind of tell how the markets are going to open the very next day, just depending on how the futures have moved, right? And so this is the same thing with NQ. NQ follows, I would say actually the opposite. QQQ, okay, follows NQ. Okay, that's what I would say. All right. People will say a different statement there than me, but this is what I say, right? QQQ follows NQ, right? Because NQ is the overall futures. They're open almost 24 hours, almost. But for now, NQ is the futures for QQQ. So okay, so NASDAQ here for a NASDAQ futures, we might be seeing, yeah. So Morris, a little secret for the people in here. I played QQQ off of NQ. Yeah. So that's exactly what you can do, right? So if you're looking at the overall markets, for example, SPY, right? You can actually look at the mini futures for SPY, which is ES. So /ES, okay? And people who tend to play the overall markets here, they tend to look at the futures, these mini futures, because it's prudent to do so. You want to be looking at how the market is reacting overnight, because a lot of the action happens overnight as well. Okay, that's something that you guys should never forget there. But with NQ here, Morris, I'm looking at a potential double top. I was looking at QQQ earlier this morning, and I was also actually explaining this to my one-on-one student today morning when I had a session with him, and he was wondering what QQQ looked like today and what was my kind of overall sentiment on it. And I said there's potential for QQQ to have a double top here, so we might just chop around here. Also, depending on how overall earnings happen, especially Amazon, since Amazon's reporting tomorrow after hours. And so we need to be looking out for how that's going to work out. So I'm going to be watching that out. I'm going to be watching for that as well. So we can just literally do the same thing that we did here, right here, at this point here, this area, and just kind of literally just chop around here, waiting for Amazon results. And then maybe if Amazon results are bad, we might have a nice flush down. Okay. And this could happen. I mean, we are a little bit overextended, not too extended, but we are still overextended. I mean, if we just take a look at the RSI daily time frame, we're not oversold, but okay, over on the intraday time frames, we're still near that overbought levels, not oversold. So, yeah, and Apple as well, right. So Amazon, Apple, big earnings, right? So same thing with NQ, right? Overnight today. Okay, we might just see that rejection again around 15,000, so 15,000 and around 15,700. Okay, that'll be your key level there. And if I want to be specific, I would say 15,710 will be your kind of pivot point there, where the price can actually flip to the downside. So I think if NQ makes a double top here, that's actually not a bad thing, because if we have a double top and we come back down, we can start actually seeing something like this. Okay, something like this to happen. All right, so I would say draw this trend line here, Morris, from the bottom here, since we bottomed out at the last time we had this nice big consolidation and sell-off about a couple weeks ago in October and September. But this is something that I'll be watching out for. And then obviously, if we touch back to this previous level here, which is also coinciding with around 15,000, right? The whole number 15,000 here. All right. If you're able to come back down and touch this area here and bounce off of it around 15,000, that'll be great as well. And maybe use this around 15,400 as a level of resistance. Okay, and eventually break up and then consolidate here again and then break all the way up towards 16,000. Okay, but obviously this is the type of a kind of a play and price reaction that I'll be expecting if we didn't have uncertain catalysts like Apple and Amazon earnings. Does that make sense? Yeah, looks great. I mean, yeah, it does look great for N2 right now. But I think also as well with this is an ideal price action that I want to see. But obviously we have such big uncertainties going on with tech here in the tech sector. So Amazon and Apple will be something definitely I'll be watching out for tomorrow as well. Okay, so IFBD. Okay, so IFBD is a Chinese name. All right, and IFBD is one of those technological names that this is one of those Chinese names that have potential here, even if it's very cheap here. A lot of IPOs in Chinese name, they've IPO'd very, very cheaply. And I think that's a kind of a tactic that the Chinese people use, where they IPO at a very, very small valuation. And then as they're pummeling the stock down, right, just like what's happening here, they have an explosion of growth in their business and in the share price as well. And that's something I think that they do. The whole Chinese government, they tend to just absolutely, and the markets, they just, out of nowhere, these Chinese moves are starting to move really, really big and big percentages as well. After being such, there been a huge downtrend, for example, like this one, IFBD, right? But at the same time, technically, okay, we have a nice descending channel here, or even a falling wedge if you use different anchor points here. But this is a name that's been breaking out so far. I think IFBD has potential to start being in the double digits here, since we did have that big candlestick in the IPO here. So IFBD can become certainly one of those short squeeze names that these Chinese stocks love to have, right? The Chinese stocks love to have short squeezes. Okay, and that's also another reason why I highly think that Chinese names are very, very important in the next few years as the world becomes more Chinese, as Chinese gains a lot more market share and a lot more economic power as well. So that's it for IFBD. Okay, all right. So I also want to look at Bumble one more time here. I've been stressing this name out for everyone here, right? Because Bumble is one of those names that have a lot of potential. If you look at A-Firm, okay, I was charting A-Firm. Oh, hey Sean. Okay, so I'll do J&J next, and then X and LPX. I don't know what that one is, but okay, LPX. So with Bumble and A-Firm, right? This looks exactly the same as Bumble here, where we just completely were flushed from IPO price ranges, and then after that we started basing, okay? And after that happened, we had a huge catalyst, right? And I'm kind of expecting Bumble. I mean, Bumble already had a big catalyst here, right? And so I would expect another type of news to come out on Bumble here. And that's the reason why I think long term here, we can break out above 61, this big resistance for this base here, this big macro base. And once we're able to break up above 61, we should see a big short squeeze from the people who shorted here near IPO range here and come back towards the 70s and then eventually back towards the IPO highs of 80s. All right, so this is something that you guys have to be watching out for, because I think this is one of those names that have that big bullish catalyst, and technically they look great, right? And this looks exactly like A-Firm here, right? I mean, the similarities is is really uncanny here. I mean, this is an amazing similarity here, right? So it's one of those names that I think can really move bigly. I mean, take a look at what happened last week on Thursday, right? After that big news on Google App Store and Google Play and the Apple App Store, we saw that big movement here, right? And I think Bumble can become a name that has can have a huge return if you're able to stay patient with it. Okay, so J&J. So J&J is a name that I am in currently. I was in huge profits yesterday, but now we've pulled back a bit here, and I ended up on this position a little bit red. But I kind of like how we pull back here, even if we saw a lot of selling volume. But overall, we broke out of this nice descending level of resistance, and 2 days ago on Monday, we saw this nice big run up. Okay, and this tells me that overall, the J&J should be, breaking out of this descending level of resistance. So this is a nice big hammer candlestick. And so I'm not kind of expecting us to kind of pull back more here because, first of all, I think today was a nice pullback day for us to actually let this 10 SMA catch up. Okay. And this is telling me that, potentially tomorrow we have a retest of the 10 SMA, or maybe we don't even have a retest tomorrow, and we just continue to break up above 164.50ish and stay above 164.50ish, allowing this 10 SMA to just support the way up. All right, and that'll be kind of my most ideal situation. But today, obviously, ugly price action with volume as well. So I'm going to be watching out tomorrow to see if I'm going to be stopped out and I have to get out of my position, or potentially add on to my position if we have a nice bounce up. Okay, so J&J is one of those names I'm expecting to potentially have the name come back to 170.50ish is my profit target here. And J&J also has really, really good vaccine numbers. I mean, they added a couple hundred million in their revenue for J&J. So that's really, really good. Just off of their vaccines. And I think that number is going to keep on going higher and higher and higher as people are getting more and more vaccinated, and also the boosters, right? So the booster vaccine, I know there's going to be people taking it because, especially the people who are elderly, who have a lot more, they have a lot more risk to getting to be reinfected by the Delta variant as well. So this booster can really help J&J actually kind of upsell their initial vaccine, their single shot vaccine here. All right, so that's it for J&J. Sean, let's look at your X. So we've been talking a lot about X here, right? Okay, so X, not good action today. So I would think that most names here, like today, since and all these steel names, right? STLD, CLF, Cliff, right? Okay. Also, what else? NUE, right? So all these names are having a pretty reasonable pullback along with the overall market, right? But with X here, we have earnings coming up. Okay, as earnings are tomorrow, I think. So our earnings. Let me check the earnings actually, because it might be pre-market or after-market tomorrow, which would mean that. Oh no. So I think. So US Steel. Yeah, so they're scheduled for October 29th. Okay. I'm sure. Yeah, okay, so 29th there. So Sean, I don't know if you're in right now. I think you did tell me that you were in after hours. Not after hours. You're in leaps. Okay. So with steel here, United States Steel X, you might have a chance to add, but I would say if you're still in, I would say you wait after earnings, because like I said, earnings are 50-50, right? And if steel US Steel here decides to have really ugly numbers and guidance, this name can absolutely flush, right? So if you just have one contract or however many contracts, and I would say if you have multiple contracts to cut back to just one, okay? Because I think if you're kind of heavily positioned into this name, it's best that you do not risk holding onto this name with that amount of money through earnings, especially since earnings can be very, very, very volatile. And the fact that it can go the complete opposite way where you want it to be. So it's highly advisable that you cut back in your position. But overall, I'm going to be waiting for earnings for this name because this name can move other steel names as well. But with US Steel here, like I said, we have not revisited this $23 level of resistance that we broke out of as level of confirmation. So maybe tomorrow we might have that retest, and that's also going to coincide with the 10 SMA catching up as well around $23. So if we do have this retest at 23 and a bounce at this 10 SMA, we can potentially see a big bounce before earnings here on October 29th, which is on Friday. Okay. But for now, if you're heavily into this position for leaps, I would say get out. But I also want you to not fully get out since maybe you're at a loss here. And also you don't really want to obviously you don't want to miss out on a move that might happen on earnings, a big move to the upside. But I would say steel here. Just wait for earnings. You know what? Just wait for earnings, right? I mean, that's literally I'm like just do what I'm doing. I'm gonna wait for earnings, but obviously cut back if you have a lot of money going into this position right now. But yeah, I would say steel. I mean, the other steel names like NUE, they reported good numbers. CLF, they reported good numbers. Did STLD report good numbers? Yeah, I believe they did. Okay, so I wouldn't be surprised if X has good numbers and guidance as well, and revenue numbers and earnings beat. So yeah, I would say watch out for this level of resistance that we talked about, 24.50. If you want a more clear level, 25, right? And if you break 25, that should give a clear indication that we want to head back towards all-time highs around 29. Okay. LPX. So is this a railroad name? No. Pacific Corporation. Forest products. So another type of a play here. So it seems like this name has been really rallying up ever since lumber prices have really gone up as well. So if you guys don't know, lumber prices have soared a couple hundreds of percents. Lumber is now like what, a couple thousand, I think, or I think it came back down to about 1,000, and I think it's bouncing again. But those lumber prices are freaking crazy. But I think it's like this name here. I don't know what this company does, but I'm pretty sure obviously they probably cut down trees for lumber, and they make forest materials, I think, or either they supply the things that they need, that people who cut forests down, the technology that they need, right? Because it says forest materials. So whatever it is, I think this is a very, very good chart here. Obviously, very bullish chart, right? Very, 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 very bullish chart. Let's look at the weekly time frame here. Okay, yeah, look at this. We broke out of a huge base around 30, and we just kept on going and going and going. So this is one of those monster runs that you never want to miss out on, because you've just stopped looking at the bigger time frame, right? And so there's a huge base around 30 to 31 that dates back to 1993. So this name has obviously been moving very, very quickly here, and a lot. So I would say LPX, great name to look at. Let's take a look at the daily time frame again. Daily looks ugly. We lost the 50 SMA, but we have a line in the sand around, I would say, around 56, right? 56 is your line in the sand. If you break below 56, we head lower, and most likely we're going to break this pivot point that we made here, this pivot low around 49.96. And so if you break below 56 here, we just see a nice flush downwards to around 48.50. So I would say you need to wait for LPX if you're trying to long this name to see if you're going to have a bounce at this 200 SMA, which also coincides luckily with a previous level of support around 57.80ish here. So we might just see a double bottom bounce. So this will be our first bounce, and if we bounce right here with the 200 SMA, this retest to the 200 on the daily, we can potentially see a double bottom here. Okay, but for now, I would say nothing to see here. Just wait for the price to kind of settle down. We just started breaking lower, and we have earnings. So, if we bounce here, if we sell out tomorrow as well, and then bounce, and we head up into earnings, okay, that's a potential play that you can play if you come back down to 57.50-ish to around 0.80ish, and you can get long there and potentially play the way up as the price starts running up. Okay, so hopefully we're back, but my connection is still unhealthy here. Just turned green, so we here, since we are having some connection problems. So I hope you guys are able to see what I did for Riot. But that was the last name here, and we're kind of nearing our 30-minute mark here, over 30-minute mark. All right. Okay, so I will have to end this here since we are having some very, very horrible connection problems. But I hope that people are able to see the chat here. The connection is pretty poor here, so I won't be able to continue this live. Okay, and if anyone, okay, I guess not. If anyone can still hear me, I am holding a webinar tomorrow that you guys might want to check out on my website. It's a C.F.O exclusive webinar as well. So it's not free, it's going to be paid as well. So it's something that I am planning to do every single month, 2 times. So 2 times every single month. Okay, so if you guys want to find out more information, just check out my story on Instagram.